What's going on, everybody? This is Emerald Knight Leon. I'm back with another deck analysis. This is a deck, Purple Hybrid, that I've been running lately during for locals, where I'm finally getting used to purple. I think. For context, I have ADHD, and what that does is it makes purple a nightmare for me to play, because especially early on when BT-7 was out and Titamon was all the rage. I tried Titamon. It did not end well. What mainly happened was 9 times out of 10, I screw up. I forget to chain the inherited effects in the right order, uh, resulting in situations where, oh, these effects cancel each other out, or oh, half of these effects aren't going off, otherwise it'd become an illegal move because they're being essentially usurped by a different effect. Or, oh, I just forgot to activate Kari for the 15th time in a row. Suffice to say, Titamon was not fun for me. Lilith Loop was not fun for me. I respect anybody who plays them, because you need to keep track of your board in order to use all of that to its fullest potential. I love Purple Hybrid right now because there's not a lot I have to keep track of. There are only two Digimon outside of my Digi-Eggs that have inheriteds, and the rest is mainly keeping track of my Tamers, which, is easy to do when I don't have so many inherited effects to keep track of. I still make mistakes sometimes. On occasion, I'll still almost forget to suspend Kari, but, I'm getting better at it. On my first time playing with it, I got 7th place at a locals with 20 players. The next day, I went to a different locals, and I got 6th place with 24 players. And just recently, I did a tournament where there were about 8 or 9 players. There were about 9 players because someone was getting the bye, and I got 2nd place. Sure, I got the bye in the first round, but I achieved one of my personal criterias for a good deck in that I was able to beat Red Hybrid finally. Because Red Hybrid is a pain in the ass to deal with when you're not using it. But moving on, to start with, we're running 4 copies of Demi Maramon and 1 copy of Sunemon. Demi Maramon is here for his on deletion. He is a trigger draw 1 and then trash 1 card in your hand. What I tend to do with this deck is I will have, say, my Gabumon or my Lopmon, or if I'm feeling like I can make a combo to go off to get him back, I'll even swing with Gazimon. And I'll just swing into security, killing them off. In the event of Gazimon, I usually would have something like Kaiser Leo Rehiman ready to go so that I could then use Calling from the Darkness to bring Gazi back to hand, and then get Rihi's effect going. But I do very much enjoy the Demi Mara's triggering draw 1. Sunemon here, you can use any real Digi-Egg for this. I like Sunemon because I like to pair him up with Gabumon here, where I would probably Digivolve Loui onto him. And what I will do is I'll have Loui swing with the intent to kill himself. But I do it because I want Gabumon to get his trigger draw 1, trash 1, which will then trigger Sunemon's when you trash a card in your hand using an effect, trigger draw 1. Would I change the ratios? Maybe. If I did change the ratios, I might put Demi Mara to 3 and Suno to 2, but as of right now, I do like where they are. Moving on to our level 3s, we are running 3 copies of Gazimon. Gazimon is he's essentially our Terriermon for the deck. Your opponent can't gain memory except with Tamer effects. Very useful. We're running 3 copies of Lopmon. Lopmon is here because I love pairing her with Loui, just so that when I do play a Tamer, or if I use the Rehiman loop, as I like to call it, where I put Kaiser Leo out, I put in Rihi, I swing with Rihi, I die, and if I don't die, then I kill it with using Calling from the Darkness or Deathclaw. And what happens then is Rihi dies, Hopefully he's on Koichi. You gain a memory from Koichi. And then with Rihi's effect, you can play a tamer from your trash. And so you'll play a tamer from your trash. It could be anything, Koichi, Kari, Mimi, or Matt. And then what Lopmon does is you'll gain a memory for it. So what that does is further choke your opponent or even keep your turn going so you could do something else. Normally I like to do this with the Koichi because when I do this, I have my Digi-Egg out but no level 3 onto it, so I'll use Koichi in order to draw one, trash one, or in the event that I'm using Calling from the Darkness, I'll use it to get one of my purple level 3s back in order to just Digivolve, draw one, maybe play another tamer like Mimi or Analog Youth. Uh, I've talked about Gabumon already. We are running 2 copies of him. Originally, I was running about 3 or 4, but as I've added few more tamers here and there, I feel like this is a good place for him. We are running 4 copies of Bokomon. Bokomons are tamer and hybrid searcher. Having him at the start of the game is incredibly useful. If you don't have a tamer in your hand. So what happens is I will have him in hand. Maybe I'll have a purple level 3. I'll Digivolve into my breeding. I'll play a Bokomon. Hopefully I'll get a Koichi or a Kari out. If that doesn't work out, I'll get a hybrid that I can then Digivolve over to either Lopmon or Gabumon. Finally, we are running 3 copies of Bushi Agumon. Bushi Agumon is the only yellow I'm playing in this deck. I understand why people play bottom end level yellow cards such as Cutemon for its reduced Digivolution cost. I just like having the memory increase and draw power from Gabu and Lopmon. And Bushiagu has come in clutch a couple times where I'll use him specifically for trash effects. Do I have him in hand and he's dead weight and I use Koichi? Draw one, trash one? Well, we know what we're trashing. We're trashing Bushi. To have him set up for later on if we are going into Cherubimon. Going on to our level 4s, we are running 3 copies of Loemon. He's our standard 5000 DP hybrid. And we are running 4 copies of Kaiser Leomon. Kaiser Leomon is really great. The reason we are running 3 copies of Loe is because we wanted to make room for like some tamers in the 4th Cherubimon. Because originally I only had 3 Cherubimon. The prototype deck of this was running 3 Cherubimon, 2 copies of Anubismon for his ability to make every card have rush. But I wasn't seeing Anubis enough, and when I did see him, oftentimes I was just trashing him because I didn't have need for him. So that's where we came in with Bushi Agumon to just, use him as our dedicated, you need to draw one and trash one, here's your card to trash. Kaiser Leomon, however, let's talk about him. He is your beast hybrid. He is a 1 cost to Digivolve onto a level 4. He is a 3 cost to Digivolve on a level 3. If you are Digivolving him on a tamer, he becomes a 2 cost. And if he has hybrid in its traits or Koichi in his Digivolution cards, he gains retaliation until the end of the next turn. Now, people can correct me or tell me if I'm right or wrong on this. I don't know. If you go into Kaiser Leomon, you go into Rehiman, does Rehiman have retaliation? I'm not sure. I've asked some people, they've said yes. I've asked some people, they've said no. Comment below if you have an answer for that. I really don't know at this point. But yeah, no. In the event that he has retaliation, that's great. If he doesn't, okay, I can still get off his loop combo pretty well. But yeah, moving on to our level 5, Rehiman. Rehiman is the star of what I call the loop combo. There was a point in one match against Red Hybrid, that I was in where I got 2nd place, where for half the match, I was only swinging with Rehiman. Because what I did was I swing with Rehiman. Okay? Rehiman either will live or die. Does he die? Okay. I have another Rehi in hand. What do we do now? Okay, so we gain a memory. We play Koichi. Next turn. Calling from the Dark. Basically play another combo of Rihi and Kaiser Leo. kill itself. Doesn't die? Okay. Calling from the Darkness. Let's take Rehiman and Kaiser Leo back to our hand so we could just keep the loop going again and again and again and again. And half of my opponent's security was killed because of that loop. And it was kind of funny because they tried swinging in one turn and ended up hitting one of my option cards, completely wiping their board. So you can get through half the game if you got that loop going. It is very easy. At one point, though, you do want to go into your level 6, which, talking about that, Cherubimon. Cherubimon is... I like Cherubimon. I like trying to turn cards into, good cards for decks. I tried creating a Beast Recovery deck back in EX1 for Cherubimon, because Cherubimon, in my eyes, is slept on. I'm glad Cherubimon here is getting the attention he needs, even if it's at the cost of his morality, I guess. When Digivolving, you may play a purple Tamer from your trash without paying its cost, and then for each Tamer you have in play, delete one of your opponent's level 4 or lower Digimon. This is incredibly useful, because I've been able to board wipe my opponent before. So what will happen is I'll often actually purposely trash my Matt if I have him, because I don't want to play Matt for a 4 cost. I want to play him for a free cost, and then get off his effect to bring back one of my option cards. Or if I don't have a level 3, one of my level 3s. That's not Bushi. Or maybe it, And that's very useful, because then if I'm playing Matt, I'll get off Matt's effect to bring, back one of my options or level 3s. I mentioned that already. I'm sorry. Another card that I use sometimes from his effect is if I trashed Kari, or Kari was taken out by an opponent's Sword Defeat. That happens. They're trying to limit your memory gain. So I'll just bring Kari back by Digivolving into Cherubimon. No big deal. What sets Cherubimon apart from a lot of other cards is his on deletion. For every Tamer you have in play, you may play one level 3 Digimon card from your trash without paying its memory cost. This is amazing, because by the late game, you're gonna have at the very least 3 Tamers out, and that'll give you 3 extra bodies. And if you have 3 Bushis in your trash, well, that's great, because if it's your turn, you're going to win unless you get into an option card that'll wipe your board. That's the only way you're going to lose at that point. Cherubimon is just a really great card. I just wish I could play him more often, because oftentimes by the time I win, I don't need him. Which is why I bumped him up to 4, so I can actually see him more often for once. Going into our options, we are running 2 copies of Calling from the Darkness. Calling from the Darkness, delete one of your Digimon, then return up to 2 purple Digimon cards from your trash to your hand. Now, here's the thing. Calling from the Darkness, deleting one of your Digimon, that's something that happens. You can choose whether or not to return up to 2 purple Digimon cards from your trash to your hand. That's optional, actually. So what I've done with this is, if I'm doing the Rihi combo, I'll return up to 2 purple Digimon from my trash. If I'm doing Cherubimon, I will probably still be taking cards from my trash. What I would normally bring is my level 4s. Just so I have something capable of going into if my opponent is able to board wipe me after I use the Cherubimon effect. And that's usually what is able to win the game for me. I'm also running 4 copies of Schwarz Lesarts. I don't know why I've taken to calling him Lesart Schwartz. I don't know, it just rolls off the tongue better for me. For each Digimon with hybrid in its traits, and each Tamer you have in play, delete one of your opponent's level 5 or lower Digimon. This is a card that it's okay to play if you're at 0 memory, in my opinion, because if you have the Tamers or hybrids out, it's worth board wiping your opponent so they can't go into their level 6s that quickly. Yeah, you're giving them 6 memory, unless you're playing against yellow, in which case you're giving them 10 memory, because they're playing a lot of the Kari and TK. So they're probably at lower security cards than you. So you're probably going to give them 10 memory anyways. So having that ability to board wipe them is very useful. they're going to have to take time in order to bring back their board. Finally, we're running one copy of Deathclaw. Deathclaw is a card I placed in here just to take care of a few hybrids here and there. If the store you're going to has the side deck and mulligan rules in place right now, Deathclaw is something you can swap in and out with Calling from the Darkness for in your side deck. Onto our Tamers, we're running 2 copies of Matishita. He is our memory fixer. You only need to run 2 of him, personally. His secondary effect is on play, return 1 purple Digimon or purple option card from your trash to your hand. This is very useful. Again, I like to use him in conjunction with Cherubimon or Rehiman. We'll also be running 2 copies of Mimi. Mimi I placed in here because of her ability. When a player uses an option card, you may suspend this tamer to gain 1 memory. This created a funny moment in that same tournament where my opponent plays a option card for 1 memory. So what happens, he is at 1 memory because I played Mimi that turn to choke him to 1. He then plays Atomic Inferno, he goes to 0. What he forgot was I played Mimi, so I suspend Mimi and I go to 1, completely nullifying Atomic Inferno. Was that useful for me? Yes, because, yeah, I'm at 1, but at the same time, I had Matt on the field, so I still went to 3. And also, I was able to I had Bokomon out as well, so even if I didn't have Matt, the fact that I had Bokomon, I could then go into one of my hybrids for free and just keep the Rihi loop going, which is what I did. We'll also be running 3 copies of Kari. Kari is a card that is needed in this deck. Her suspend ability is when a card is removed from your security stack, you can suspend this tamer to gain 1 memory. This was a card that was very useful back in Lord Nightmon because you were running cards like Blinding Ray, where you trash a card from your security, gain 2 memory, and then you'll suspend 1 to 2 Karis, gain 2 more memory. She's very useful in that regard. It also helps limit the amount of attacks your opponent is able to do. Essentially, if your opponent is relying heavily on hybrids and they have nothing in their breeding area, and they have, say, 1 Digimon out, and they're at 3 memory, they get 1 attack before they're put to 1. So at that point, they have to bring in their hybrid, swing, and then they only get that 1 attack. They'll get another body in that turn, but that makes it easy for you to board clear them if you have Schwarz Lazarts out. So it's really about checking your opponent. We'll also be running 4 copies of Koichi, which is obvious because he's our frontier tamer for the deck. Koichi's on play is very useful. Draw 1, trash 1, and then his on deletion, gain 1 memory. I've used this in conjunction with Lopmon to be able to essentially gain 2 memory, or gain 1 memory if I'm using Calling from the Darkness or Deathclaw, but it's very useful because it just creates that loop. We'll finally be running 2 copies of Analog Youth. Analog Youth is a card that some people will play 3 of in place of playing Mimi. I like to run 2 Mimi, 2 Analog Youth, just to get that full ratio of being able to get memory off of anything your opponent's doing. Is your opponent deleting your level 5 or higher Digimon? Then you get memory from Analog Youth. Are they using an option card? You're going to get memory from Mimi. Are they taking cards out of your security? Or you're going to get memory from Kari. With Analog Youth, he's very useful because he plays into the Rihi loop, where you're swinging in with Rehiman. Rehiman dies. You play Koichi again. Koichi is gaining a memory. Lopmon will give you another memory if you have it out. Analog Youth is going to give you a 3rd memory if you have that out because Rehiman died. It's very useful because then if you already took your Digimon out of breeding, you get a new Digimon to essentially just start setting up for more attacks and more chip damage as you go. He's also very useful because of his trash ability. Not just because you're trashing your level 3s or your higher Digimon that you're not going to need, but also because you can trash your Tamers, which will be very useful for the Rihi loop as well as Cherubimon. So that is it for this deck. Now, there are cards that you could tech in. If you are running a yellow build for this, you're going to be running Upamon. You're going to be running Salamon here for its recovery. You're going to be running Cutemon for its reduction. If you're running Starmon for Cherubimon's effect, so you're just destroying your opponent's field by killing off Cherubimon. You are running Lucamon if you're wanting that memory. And if you're running Lucamon, you're probably going to be running Chaos Mode for deleting your opponent's Tamers or level 6 or lower Digimon. You're going to be running Dead or Alive to do so. Outside of this, if you're running anything else, you're running maybe Labramon. Labramon's play ability is triggering draw 1, then trash 1 from your hand, similar to Koichi. So if you don't have Koichi in your starting hand, but you have Labramon, that's an option to work with. Dracmon from the starter deck is also a good card because if you're running a lot of the 1 costs or 7 costs for your deck, such as Trump Sword or Fly Bullet for the 7 costs, or as we went over, Deathclaw Calling from the Darkness for your 1 costs, his on play lets you return one of those to your hand. If going into level 5s, you're running maybe Lady Devimon for her draw 2, trash 2. You could be running Neo Devimon because of his ability. So when your opponent plays a Tamer, you're gaining 3 memory. You're making it very hard for them to run their Tamers. They're going to have to spend more memory just to kill him off. Furthermore, his inherited is when your opponent's Tamers become suspended, gain a memory. So say if your opponent is a yellow user, you could be gaining a memory from each time they use TK and Kari, where, yeah, your Digimon's going to get minus 1,000 for the turn a number of times, but you're going to get a memory for each one. So they're not going to want to use it for that. You could also be running Rebellimon for his ability of trashing a card from your hand to become a blocker and have retaliation. You could be running Antilamon because Antilamon's effect lets you play a purple Tamer card for a play cost of 3 or less from your trash without paying its memory cost, which is very useful, helping you build up your Tamers for when you go into Cherubimon to board clear more. As I mentioned, Lucamon Chaos Mode is an option if you have the ability to do so. If you got really lucky and you got him, that's great. You use him if you want. He is expensive right now. As of right now, Lucamon is currently going on TCG Player for about $26 for his Chaos Mode regular artwork. His BT-4 child version is running about 56 to 57. If you're wanting the alt arts, however, bear in mind Chaos Mode, his market price right now is $51.24, and his BT-4 alt art is $63.24 market price. They are very expensive cards. Buy if you have the money to do so. I built this deck specifically because I don't have the money to play those cards, really. In my entire time of playing, I've only been able to naturally pull 1 copy of the BT-4 Lucamon and 1 copy of Chaos Mode. Alright? I would have an easier time running Susanoo-mon because I've actually pulled in my 4 booster boxes that I've gotten 3 copies of him. Alright? And if you have Susanoo-mon, he is still a good card to play. Mainly because of his security attack +2, and when Digivolving, delete one of your opponent's Digimon. So if your opponent has 1 Digimon out, you go into him, you're going to clear. If they don't have a solution to Susanoo-mon, you're most likely going to win. But going back to our level 5s, the last one is Skull Satamon from Starter Deck 6. His Digivolution ability is you can return a purple Digimon card from your trash to your hand. This can be useful sometimes. I don't really see a need for him because you have a bunch of other means of doing so, like Cherubimon or Calling from the Darkness. We've talked about Susanoo-mon, but let's just bear in mind, yes, he is 15,000 DP. He is a 15 cost to hard play. He is a 7 cost to Digivolve. And his ability is you can Digivolve him by onto one of your tamers as if the tamer was level 6 by placing 10 tamer cards and or cards with hybrid in their traits from your hand or trash to the bottom of your deck. This can be very useful. So if you wanted to play him and you had the money to get at least 2 copies of him, go for it. As of right now, Susanomon is, for the regular art, market price $38.77. For his alt art, it is $65.80. I just want to let you know about that just before you make any purchases. This price can fluctuate. So if you want him, either get it now or wait till it drops in price. On to our possible option cards. If you need a way to take care of your opponent's level 6s, Trump Sword and Fly Bullet are useful cards. They are 7 costs, so they might not be worth it for you if you really feel like that. They might be. It really just boils down to how fast are you going to be able to kill your opponent before you need to use those. Another card to go into is Back for Revenge. Now, I don't know how this would affect Cherubimon, because I haven't really seen anybody talking about it. But my question for this card is, because one of your Digimon gains on deletion, play this card without paying its memory cost, and any on-play effects won't activate. So if you were to slap this onto Cherubimon, then kill it off, which on deletion works first? Would its first on deletion of playing level 3s occur first, or would his on deletion of playing him occur first? And in which case, do they cancel each other out maybe? I don't know. I've never really thought about it. This is a question I've had for a couple days, and if anybody has an answer for that, please let me know. Comment down below what you think about it. I had this idea for Gabumon, really, as a means of making Gabumon a little more aggressive early on. But this is an idea that I want to pursue, maybe. Moving on, we have Dead or Alive, which lets you play 1 purple level 5 Digimon from your trash without paying its cost. And if there are 10 or more cards in your trash, you can play Digimon with Lucamon in its name without paying its cost. So how that works is, if you're running the yellow build with both Lucamons, you could play either this Lucamon, if you had 10 or more cards in trash, in which case you're playing him for free, or essentially what you would normally pay if you were playing him normally, which is 8. You're going to get that on recovery one, or you're playing Chaos Mode for 8, where you essentially are going to be able to delete one of your opponent's Tamers or level 6 or lower Digimon. Going on, we have Purple Memory Boost that could be an option. Mainly is going to be used for searching your deck. He's got the delay of gaining 2 memory, and also Blinding Ray if you wanted to run the yellow build for it, where Blinding Ray is trashing the top card of your security, gain 2 memory. Problem with Blinding Ray is it doesn't have a security effect, so if it comes out of security, you're not going to have it go to your hand, sadly. The same can also be said for Back for Revenge. On to Tamers, you could be running Sora and Mimi, where when one of your purple Digimon attacks, you can suspend her to trigger draw 1, and if your opponent doesn't have a level 4 or lower Digimon in play, gain 2 memory. If your opponent is running something akin to Ancient Greymon, they're primarily going to be just going straight into it and not having their field really open so they can get that big damage out, and you're going to benefit from that. You could also run Matt Ishida from the starter deck. When one of your Digimon is deleted, you can suspend it to gain 1 memory. This is useful if you are sacking off your level 3s like I am. I personally just feel like Mimi is a better option because you can use it during your opponent's turn, whereas Matt can only be used during your turn. Finally, if you're running yellow build, or even if you're not running yellow build, this might be useful just for its start of turn effect, is TK and Kari. If you have fewer security than your opponent, gain 2 memory. I feel like this could benefit the non-yellow build because just having that and gaining 2 memory to make it easier to go into a lot of stuff or use the Rehi loop is very useful. But that is it for this deck analysis. What are your thoughts on this? I'm currently enjoying purple for once in my life. Uh, and, again, leave a comment, leave a like, subscribe if you are so inclined. And I will see you in the next video or next live stream. Peace.